Thank you for joining us. This is the Invisible Man 733 Presents, and I'm honored to have the Afrodescendant Nation Minister of Finance, Kamal Akrum, as a guest. Unfortunately, he won't be updating us on finance. We will again talk about how to eat to live, which is a very important topic. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Like salam, brother Invisible Man. Thank you for having me again. And actually, I'm the Minister of Economics. We do have a Minister of uh, Finance, but that is
Oh, someone
Brother
else.
Talib Salim. I'm the
Yes, sir.
Minister of Economics. Yes, sir.
What is the difference in economics and finance?
Well, economics basically involves study and knowledge of things that affect people's lives, like inflation, um, the price of goods and services. Finance is more along the lines of it's more numerical, I would say. You're getting involved with taxes, but there is a lot of crossover. For example, I concentrate on financial markets, um, currencies, foreign currencies, cryptocurrencies, and there is a lot of overlap between finance and economics. But economics is really a social science that deals with how the macro forces around the world affect people's lives.
Okay. I don't know if I got it correctly, but let me try to realize what you said. The difference is socioeconomic factors control economics, and finance is just concerned primarily with money.
Finance can involve money, yes. Like I mentioned, taxes,
Mm-hmm.
um, investing,
Yes, sir.
budgeting, things like that.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about food. And today, food is going up. So that's very important to your pocketbook. Have you noticed the increase in the price of food lately?
Yes, I have. Due to inflation, yes, price of food has been going up lately.
And something they say about the chain of supply, trucks not being able to take goods to the market, and the pandemic that we are suffering, causing a lot of people to have been out of work. And there is some talk that perhaps the wages are so low that people don't even want to come back to work.
Yes, well, the world economy has opened up pretty much in sync, and they put a lot of pressure on the demand for goods and services, so caused supply chain shortages to the extent where a lot of the people that are in those industries or that are in industries that are part of the supply chain, um, there's not enough people to handle the demand. Here in the United States of America, there's a trucking shortage and a shortage of people to drive the trucks. So when the ships unload their goods at the ports, there's still the issue with truck drivers needed to drive those goods and services through various parts of the country. So you have these ships waiting offshore to be unloaded, and it's causing the supply shortages, and then shortages cause inflation because people are trying to buy and consume those goods, and there's not enough of them. When the supply is low, it drives the price up.
Okay. Now, in terms of the Ministry of Economics and that being your field, when you related to food, and we're talking about food, the immigrants who come and may or may not have the correct papers, they pick the fruits and vegetables How does that affect the supply chain?
Um, well, that depends on where that food is coming from.
Hmm. Let's
Um,
say grown here, and you were talking about a shortage of workers. I'm pretty sure we have a shortage of workers here in this country as well for people to pick produce.
well, as you know, the United States of America is a very distorted immigrant policy. So that does affect the inflow of those immigrants who would normally work on farms that produce vegetables, fruits and vegetables. And then, of course, the coronavirus had cut into the stream of immigrants as well. But a lot of the shortages from outside the country are not always have to do with food. So a lot of the food grown in the country is available for the most part. It's just some items that are grown outside the United States that are affected by the supply chain issues,
Hmm.
such as in when the United States is in winter, it gets a lot of fruits and vegetables from South America, as opposed to in the summertime where more fruits and vegetables are grown in the United States. And so those fruits and vegetables coming from South America, like Brazil, places like that, may have a little bit of a problem getting into the United States due to the supply chain issues. And because of that, the prices are slightly elevated as well.
Okay. Before we go directly into how to eat to live, uh, you said you have been to the store. Now, from our last conversation, based on your eating habit, you are probably paying a lot less than most people because you eat very little. Tell the audience if they missed the last broadcast how often you do. And I think the term you said was eating, period.
Right. I have an eating period that takes place once every 5 days. In 5 days is approximately 120 hours. And out of that 120 hours, I would eat maybe, well, the goal is 24 hours. I would
Hmm.
eat for a period of 24 hours and fast for approximately 96 hours. It doesn't
Mm,
always work out that way because every 5 days, some of those days may fall on the weekends, some of them may fall on a work day or during the week. So I try to keep it as precise as possible and try to keep the eating period within a 24-hour period.
sounds to me like it's really almost like fasting.
Well, you are fasting after the eating period. You go on a fast for 3.5, 4 days,
Oh,
for approximately 96 hours. So, yes, that is correct. Every time you get through eating, you go on a 3.5, 4 day fast.
mm. And you've been doing this for how many years?
I've been on the once every 5 day schedule since 2007. So let's see. And that was in January when I switched. So in 2022, that'll be what, 15 years?
Yes, sir. Well, do you feel that it makes you a better thinker, a better person to move about, and so on?
The thing I notice the most is that, and I feel the best once the initial food that I've eaten is just about eliminated. So after maybe 36 hours after that period, eating period is over with, is when I feel the best. And what I feel is, um, how would you explain? I have more energy, that's for
Hmm.
sure, because the food can make you a little tired and sluggish, maybe weighted down. So I have more energy in terms of the thinking. That is really hard to gauge because I escalated up to that level over a long period of time. I spent about 2 to 3 years eating every other day, and then 5 years every third day, 6 years every fourth day, and now 15 years on the every fifth day schedule. Um, so I know my mind is quick. I
Hmm.
do things like to keep it active, like Sudoku and
Wait a minute.
reading and
What?
studying and things like
What
that.
is a, that's a type of puzzle?
Sudoku is an ancient Japanese puzzle, yes, that has to
Oh,
do with
oh,
numbers.
oh, okay. Well, I guess you probably do like math, huh?
Math was my favorite subject in high school. That's right.
Yes, sir. Well, if you were to tell someone a food to avoid when eating, what would be the first food that comes to mind?
The number one thing that people should avoid is anything that comes from a pig, also known as pork or swine, ham, chitlins. All those things come from a pig. The pig is divinely prohibited, and every religion that has dietary laws says you should not eat pork um, in your diet. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad explains in How to Live that a pig is a cross between a rat, cat, and a dog. It has countless diseases associated with it, um, including the trichina worm, which, according to my years of being a biology major, needs to be heated to 900 degrees to kill it, although most home ovens only go up to about 660 degrees. So for people to tell you that they just cook it, they need to cook it, that's not true because you can't heat it up hot enough to kill the worms. So you're still going to get possibly those trichina worms and other type of worms in your body if you eat pork.
Mm. Well, in the sea, what should people avoid eating?
Well, there's a group of sea creatures called crustaceans. Those are all scavengers. Those should be avoided, including the catfish, which is known as the pig of the lake. Scavengers eat dirt, crap, filth, the feces of other animals. So these are unclean creatures to be eating. And if you eat those type of foods, the body has to work harder to get rid of the toxins and poisons and the filth and the dirt that's in these creatures. And this can cause more frequent illness, sickness, and there are also a lot of them are hard to digest, like the lobsters and the shrimp, hard on the digestive system. In terms of the other fish that are in the lakes, sea, and the oceans, you should avoid any fish that's weighs over 10 pounds, like a lot of your tuna. The longer those fish are swimming around in the ocean, the bigger they're going to grow. But
Hmm.
the more dirt or filth they're going to consume while they're growing. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad advises to avoid any fish that's over 10 pounds and to concentrate on the ones that's between 2 and 10 pounds.
Okay. I'd like to share with you something from How to Eat to Live. This is from chapter 13, and it says fasting is a greater cure of our ills, both mentally and physically, than all of the drugs of the earth combined into one bottle or into a billion bottles. Allah God, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, has taught me that fasting and the right kind of food are the cures to our ills. He has told me that there is no cure in drugs and medicine, and this the world is now learning. We can take medicine all of our lives until it kills us, but we are still ailing with the same old diseases. I just want to add the next line. It says, the bad food and drinks we are putting into our bodies keep us a victim to illness. There are not too many nice doctors who will tell you that drugs are not good for you because they paid for their learning and want to keep practicing. How do you respond to that?
Well, number one, I can bear witness that because of the way I eat, I rarely, if any, I can hardly even remember the last time I had an illness. Um, I do remember maybe back in 2011, I had something that was affecting me, but it only lasted less than 24 hours. Um, but I can attest that you will not get sick as often if you fast on a regular basis. Fasting is the best medicine, if you will, for the body. The Honorable Elijah Mama uses the word prescribe.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Almighty God Allah, Master Prophet Muhammad, to whom all honor and praises are forever due, that He prescribed for us fasting and to eat the correct foods. So this was a prescription that was given to us. Also, you mentioned the body and the mind. So
Yes, sir.
fasting is good for the mind. Eating the correct foods is also good for the body and the mind as well.
Okay. You said prescription, so that meant that he was indeed a spiritual doctor, ministering unto our needs. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who received his knowledge from Master Farad Muhammad, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And black people have in America have been documented as having the worst diet of any group of people on the planet. So this is definitely one of our major stumbling blocks or hurdles, if you will, keeping us from being successful in all areas of life is our diet. The number one thing we need to concentrate on that we have a lot of pretty much control over is what we consume on a day-to-day basis in terms of food and drink.
Well, where did we get our dietary practices and habits from? The majority of us.
Well, the majority of us usually get or have received those dietary habits from slavery.
Mm-hmm.
When we were enslaved, depending on what plantation you were on or what your slave master was feeding you, most of us got some of the same food that was given to the livestock or the animals. Sometimes we get scraps from what the slave master and his family were eating. Many people would tell you that the slave master's pets, such as his dog, would eat better than the slaves. So a lot of the food that we eat and that we call soul food is actually food that is difficult to digest, like the cornbread, cornmeal, some of your large beans like lima beans, kidney beans. Those kind of things are hard to digest. The pork, of course, or any meat for that matter, is difficult to digest. And a lot of our people indulge in these fatty foods, starchy foods, and foods that are difficult to digest, way too often.
Yes, sir. What you mentioned lima beans. Is there a good bean that we should eat?
Yes, in Hari to Live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us that we should eat the small navy bean. He said that it gives us life. He also mentioned the small red beans, but um, we should avoid all other beans except for the small white navy bean
Mm-hmm.
and the small red beans. These are the best beans for us to eat. These beans are full of protein and they have a lot of nutrients in terms of vitamins and minerals as well.
Okay. Now, uh, there is a difference in Orthodox Islam and contemporary Islam. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay. And to my knowledge, the practice of Ramadan is done in the month of December for the contemporary Muslim. Is that correct?
That is correct. That information was given to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he got it from Master Prophet Muhammad. And we, as Muslims in America, were taught to practice Ramadan or observe Ramadan in the month of December.
Mm-hmm. And what does that constitute? Could you describe that for the audience? How they would go about practicing Ramadan in the month of December, please?
Ramadan was given to us by Master Rob Muhammad and taught to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in December, because December is the month that a lot of people are celebrating the false holiday known as Christmas. Um, and the observing Ramadan in December enables us to keep our minds away from the practice of a false holiday. Also, this is a month where a lot of people are indulging in a lot of eating, usually the wrong food, a lot of drinking, um, alcohol, and drinks that are bad for you. And then the holiday they're observing is supposed to be the birth of Prophet Esau, also known as Jesus. So that is also known as a false holiday. So Ramadan is taught to us to be observed in December to keep our mind away from all the things that are going on uh, in December by those who are into the false practice. Now, when we do practice Ramadan, we are to eat no meat for that month, um, abstain from sex. We are to increase our prayer if we can. And then the Honorable Muhammad has introduced us to the practice of lustration, and that can also be utilized during Ramadan.
Now you have to define that that word that you just used. Could you elaborate more?
Lustration is a process of, well, actually, the definition, it comes from purification by sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a practice of a combination of things that enable you to purify your mind and your body. Naturally, Ramadan, you're not drinking or eating during the daylight hours. You're reserving that for after the sun sets and before the sun rises. So that in and of itself is helps your discipline. It's also a purification process. If you increase your prayer, that's also can be utilized as a purification process. Um, and then there's the part about sacrifice. So many people that I talk to that observe Ramadan, they handle it similar to the Christians that are observing Lent for 40
Oh.
days. They
Mm-hmm.
pick something that they're going to abstain from or not indulge in, like maybe cut back on sugar, um, in addition to what is basically prescribed. Some people also try to cut back on other things for the month of Ramadan as a form of purification
Oh,
or
yes, sir.
additional cleansing of the body.
Now you mentioned a very serious problem within the Afro-descendant community, and that is sugar. Any comments about abstaining or using or how we use sugar? Should we even use sugar?
Well, sugar is detrimental to the body, especially with the way it's being produced nowadays because it's being refined. And the main thing that we need to be aware of is what they call high fructose corn syrup, which is a sugar that, when consumed, goes straight into the bloodstream. Um, Natural sugar like cane sugar or natural raw honey, it goes through a process before it enters into your bloodstream. But the high fructose corn syrup goes straight into the bloodstream and can elevate your blood sugar drastically in a very, very short period of time. Not to mention that the corn syrup comes from corn, which is a GMO product, genetically um, modified organism. So you're also adding a genetically modified product into your system as well that your body is has difficulty recognizing and has a problem trying to process and consume. So the high fructose corn syrup and the refined sugars we should always be aware of, not just during Ramadan, but at any time we should avoid those.
Yes, sir. If you were going to warn the audience on what to look out for if they were not feeling well and how to correct it, is fasting the only way?
Well, fasting would be the number one thing that I would recommend. If a person's not feeling well, I would say, well, try skipping a day or two of eating, depending on what their schedule is. Of course, we know most people eat every day, so
Mm-hmm.
I would advise skipping a day eating, maybe 2 days, and if they can handle 3 days, 3 days eating. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as you know, tells us we should eat once a day plus a 3-day fast at the end of each month. So that would help get rid of some of the poisons and toxins that are in the body that have built up over 30 days.
Now, you talk about the food and the supply chain and things of that nature. The chemicals that are present in food today, are they more present today than in previous times?
Well, I did mention the genetically modified organisms. That's
Mm-hmm.
the main thing because not only is the corn genetically modified, um, double-minded people are genetically modifying all kinds of things. Um, a lot of your fruits, vegetables that
Yes,
we
sir.
eat, and then they're feeding those things also to livestock, which is making them ill. When the livestock get sick, they add antibiotics, which are more
Mm-hmm.
chemicals. Then in certain parts of the country where rice is grown, scientists are now claiming that there's arsenic in the ground,
Mm.
and where the rice is grown, mostly in the south, it's got high arsenic in the rice,
Mm. Well,
so another chemical or metal.
so we are approaching about 28 minutes, so we have about less than 2 minutes to go. If there was a remedy that you could give someone who wanted to prolong their life, what would it be?
The remedy, I would
Yes,
say
sir.
to concentrate on escalating um, up the fasting scale. We call it the food law in contemporary Islam, given to us by the Honorable Silas Muhammad. Escalate up the food law is as well as possible. Eat once a day. Plan, make a plan to eat every other day. Make another plan to eat every third day. And if you can go past that, then also make a plan for that as well. I would recommend take your time. There's no rush to go from once a day to every other day. And then again, there's no rush to go from once every other day to every third day. But the further you carry it out, the better it is for you,
Mm-hmm.
especially with all the uncertainty in the food that's being produced nowadays.
Yes, sir. What I'd like to ask now, you are the Minister of Economics for the Afro-Descendant Nation. Can you give us a report, a year-end report to start off the new year so our listeners will have something to look forward to, and I can get back to you at the end of this month?
Yes, sir. Now, typically I do produce a report, a
Hmm?
quarterly report.
Oh,
Do you mean a report on economics or a report on economics as it relates to food? What type of report are you talking about?
how about one on food and how we can expect to fare for the next year?
Economically?
Economically, well, if you don't eat right, you might not be around. So it's hard to separate the two, isn't it?
Okay, we'll just combine all that for the next interview at the end of
Okay,
this month or early January.
okay.
And then, of course, you'll have my year-end report. Typically, in the year-end report, I'll have a little forecast for what to expect for the coming year as well.
Yes, sir. Well, with this pandemic, I want you to put back on your economics hat. With this pandemic, I've seen statistical information that suggests that Afro descendants are really about where they started. When the pandemic started, we were already uh, the people who had fewer jobs. And for a while during the pandemic, we were on the front line and we had lots of jobs. But as the recovery or return has come back, it seems like we have now fallen back to being underemployed, unemployed, and so on. Is that what you understand to be true too?
Well, typically, and in general, Afro-descendant unemployment is higher than just about every other group of people. Um, so that has remained, that hasn't changed. And then, as you mentioned, we did go through a period where unemployment was improving, where employment was improving
Mm-hmm.
due to the recovery, but Afro-descendants, again, were lagging behind in that recovery. So, yes, what you stated is true, basically.
Okay. So when you return to the show, we hope you will give us more insight into how to spend the money. Let's try that. Let's have a typical shopping thing. That's kind of an assignment. How about that?
How to spend your money?
Well, say for uh, a family of four, draw up a way to provide them with food, and we'll jump from that point into talking about what kinds of food you purchased and that type of thing, and how you spent your money. Sure.
Okay, well, keep in mind there's four things you can do with money. Spending is just one of them. So
Yes, sir.
you can elaborate on that as well.
No, no, you got me interested now. For a thing, one is spend it. What's the other? Save it.
Well, you can invest it,
Wait a
right?
minute. I said save. What's the difference in saving and investing?
Well, saving means you're just putting it aside, basically.
Oh,
Investing means you're putting it somewhere where you're expecting a return on the
mm-hmm.
investment. You're trying to grow your
Okay.
money.
So, what are the four things? Uh, spend, which we do very easily. What else?
Mhm. Investing, you mentioned.
Okay. No, no, I said save.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. You said save. I said investing, right?
Mm,
And then those are
that's
three.
three, right? And the fourth
Mhm.
is,
Fourth, fourth is what they call what rich people do, philanthropy or give it away.
that's funny because we have very little. But believe it or not, I've read some studies that say that Afro descendants do give quite a bit of their income to philanthropic, uh,
Right.
causes. Yes, sure. So we may not
Well,
have. Go ahead.
there's also tax advantages linked to that as well. So um, I haven't seen any statistics on why or how much Afro descendants are donating, but there's a tax advantage when that's done.
Yes, sir. I don't know if we do it for taxes. I just think we're good people. But I will bring back to the table some study. I'll dig up some information to share with the audience because I really have heard that. So I'm going to follow through on that. So your assignment will be, sir, if you would take time and develop what is it, a menu, not menu, but a shopping trip. Say, I'm going to give you $100. And what would you do with $100 and the supermarket or the grocery store?
Okay,
And
sounds
it
great.
it does depend on where you go because if you go to the neighborhood store, it's not going to go very far. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yes, it does largely depend on where you do most of the shopping. Mhm.
Yes, sir. So if that's not too much to ask, and then we'll certainly be looking forward to your year end report and the projections for next year. Uh, as we close, are there any final words you'd like to say?
Well, since the subject was on eating, I would encourage the listeners to enjoy the rest of the Ramadan, and then make a plan for 2022 in terms of your fasting, to either escalate to every other day or every third day. I'm assuming a lot of people are already on once a day. If you're not, then make a plan to get down to eating once a day. And that would be my final word for the listeners.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us. And I did misspeak. You are the Minister of Economics for the Afro-Descendant Nation. And you will be joining us in on the next segment where you will present to us what you have purchased with $100 on a
Yes, sir.
shopping spree. Okay. I don't know why $100 seems to be a lot, but with the prices going up, you can't get very much. So it will be interesting to see what you decide to purchase. I want to thank you again. And this is the Invisible Man 733 presents signing off. Assalamu alaikum.
Like Slum, Invisible Man.